You are now tuned in to the Property Management Show with your host, Alex Osanenko. We bring in the experts of today so you can be the master of tomorrow in all things property management. Whether it's getting more doors, running a profitable fee-based business, or by simply being the best property manager. So, grab a pen and paper because this episode is sure to be a good one. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Boys and girls, welcome to another exciting episode of the Property Management Show. I've started this series I call How I Did It, and I'm falling in love with first the feedback I get from guests. People are learning and understanding that they're not the only ones who make mistakes. Some of the most successful property management companies, their founders made a lot of mistakes along the way, learned a lot of lessons. And so I want to bring these founders to the show, give them the opportunity to talk about their particular path. And hopefully we, the audience, or including myself, learn some things along the way so we don't make the same mistakes in our own businesses. We make different mistakes, but that's okay. So the goal is really I want to empower property management business owners with success stories and failure stories so we can learn from that. And today's guest runs a pretty awesome shop called Independence Capital. Is that it?
That's it. Yep.
And I have to say, it's not a guest. I have a husband and wife team, which is pretty awesome because I know a lot of property management companies that are founded and continue to run this way. And so I want to introduce Kristin and Shawn Johnson. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks for having us, Alex. Yeah, we're good.
Kristin, you doing good?
I'm doing great, Alex.
All right. Awesome. Good to hear from you. So let's hit this out of the park with the most harrowing story that you can tell about your business venture. First of all, clue us in, before we go there, clue us in a little bit how long you've been in business, where you are today, and then go right into your biggest fall.
Yeah, so we manage about 500 rental properties. We've had a high of about 615. Most of that is single-family homes. The multifamily stuff we use is 4-plex, 6-plex, and less and lower. So we've been in business for 6 years now. Really exploded at first. We did a fee maximization campaign 2.5 years ago now. And that really changed and shaped our business. We took a different mindset from that point forward. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of who we do business. Chris and I, we share a lot of, she's the brains behind it. I just work in my back office. And
So Shawn, are you more sales oriented and Kristin more systems oriented, or is it the other way around? How do you guys split work?
Yeah, it's interesting. Kristin and I have a lot of similarities in our skill sets. Kristin's very numbers driven, and I'm not numbers driven. I'm a helicopter pilot, and I have an attention span of about that long, so I've got to be like actively doing something all the time. But we split roles. I'm more operations, so I oversee the property managers, the assistants, and Kristin is more over the sales and the accounting side of the business. So
Shawn does do a lot of our in-house marketing type stuff, which is kind of interesting. I have a degree in marketing, but I don't have a huge passion for it. But Shawn's kind of got a creative brain, so he oversees a lot of the marketing that comes out of the office.
So the growth. So to get growth is you, Shawn. To digest growth and be able to operate against it is you, Kristin? More or less?
So I handle a lot of the sales processes, I guess. So I oversee our BDM, and I do really well going out and talking to new owners and onboarding new business. I kind of have a knack for that.
And I don't like that, but I like marketing and sales are two different things in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And I love the marketing side of it, but I'm not a huge fan of sales. I tell you what, I can pull in a new client, but I don't like doing it. So
here's a side question. What is it with pilots and the attention span?
I don't know, man. When you're in the cockpit, there's so much going on all the time that it's just doing that for so many years, it really shapes your attention span to a short one. because you want action,
It's really especially terrible when he's trying to drive a car and he's like texting and looking at his iPhone and his watch.
I'm
and
very
just
busy.
Like, focus on what's happening in front of you, man.
That's interesting. Because you know Steve Rosenberg, right?
Oh, yeah.
I know Steve good. Yeah. Steve's the same way as I am.
I have to constantly pull him off squirrels. Like him and I doing another podcast together. And he's like, oh, squirrel. I'm like, Steve, come on, man. There's a lot more to unpack here.
Yeah.
I call it the shiny object syndrome, and I have it. So
that's really good to know. I did not know that. You have to jump from instrument to instrument. Keep in mind of all these things. The machine has so many little aspects to it. I get it.
Sure.
So let's go right into the failure. Let's what do you guys say your biggest sort of oversight, and how'd you fall apart, and how you pick yourself up?
Sure. I think in my opinion, our biggest failure is kind of twofold. We brought on a property management company. Well, we bought a portfolio. In that process, it was a portfolio of 295 doors, and that was the contract. And in the due diligence, we missed that there were several properties that were actually not legitimate contracts.
Ooh.
From the people. Yeah, so it hurt. There's about $70,000 in lost purchase, I guess you would call it. So
in lost value. I mean,
lost value. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just really curious. Are those phantom contracts? Like, why were they there? Like, what was the reasoning?
Yeah. So I think we were dealing with a dishonest seller.
So really kind of what he had going on was he had these properties in his portfolio and they were legitimate contracts for the most part.
At some point, yeah.
Yeah, but in the meantime that he was trying to sell them to us, he also had them listed for sale on the sales market. And so when we picked them up, he said, oh, by the way, I just sold that one, or this one's about to sell, so I'm not transferring you that contract.
Or he would tell clients that, hey, I don't want you to terminate with me yet. Terminate after we do the sell, and then you give them the notice of termination. So there's a lot of combination.
Do you guys have a clawback?
We did. So we had a clawback only specific to a client that had larger than a certain percentage of the portfolio.
I got you.
And the clawback was not specific on doors in 6 months or a year. I would totally do that. Was a failure. I would have learned, do that different now. That was a challenge.
Yeah.
The other failure to that, there's a little bit more to that, Alex. And
let's go through it.
Yeah. The second thing in that same transition for that purchase was that Chris and I thought we had a really high satisfaction of clients back then, and we brought them all on ourselves and a lot of high trust. And we thought that in bringing on these new clients that they were going to love us just like our other clients. And so we immediately had to, sign them over to our fee structure, and that didn't set well. They were used to a different fee structure prior to, and we're switching them over, and that upset some clients. So we had to back off and take a deep breath and we waited about a year before we changed anything again. So that was my second, I guess, tip or learning experience there. and it caused some higher loss than we expected out of that portfolio. So
what would you say you lost in percentage? Like how many clients popped out of 295? What you end up with, you think?
Yeah, so we lost about 17%.
Okay.
Yeah.
17%. In retrospect, if you now can go back and do it or not do it right now, make that decision right before that purchase, would you still pull the trigger?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because
highly profitable.
Exactly. So my point is, as much as you fall on your face, you're still, and it's a lot of, I think it's a personal expense. I think it's, and I can connect to this when you realize like you built your client base and they love you and they know who you are and they know what you stand for and they connect with you. You brought this foreign customer base that is just like rebelling already.
Yeah, exactly.
So how were you able to integrate them? Because right now you're smiling, obviously. You're not like overwhelmed and your hair is not on fire. At least I can't see it from here. So how long ago was excuse me? How long ago was that, and how did the integration process go?
Yeah, so that was in September of 2014 is when the purchase happened, and we did it as a peel off the Band-Aid method. So it all came in at once. And what we discovered was the previous management company was neglecting a lot of maintenance requests. We had a line out our front door. We were getting over 450 phone calls every single day. Yeah, and it was just that stuff right there was extremely hard to predict. We hired and staffed on and trained prior to, but none of it was expected.
So, kind of on the flip side of that coin, why that was a really trying time for our office, it also helped us to win over some of the clients, both tenant customers and owner clients, because the previous management company had told owners and charged owners actually for maintenance that had never actually been performed. They had an in-house maintenance company, and so going back to these owners and saying, hey, we got this maintenance request. They said that it was reported, but nothing ever came of it. And the owner's saying, well, I paid for that. So we'd go out to the property and take pictures and send them to the owner. And their frustration level with the other management company was already fairly strong, but that kind of put them over the edge. And they loved the fact that we were willing to go out and take pictures and kind of walk them through the honesty of the maintenance process. So the negative kind of turned into a positive, that it helped us build some rapport right out the gate.
Gotcha. What are some other nuggets of integration? Because we talk a lot. My last podcast, I believe, I don't know if we published it, with Mike Catalano, we talked a lot about acquisitions and the specific things to do and not to do. What about integration? I'm more interested in the integration expertise and advice. I think the audience would be as well. What's some of the things that you've done right or you've done wrong, you think, that you would do again to integrate the company?
To start off, I think the new clients deserve a personal phone call. That goes a long ways. They're oftentimes caught off guard by the purchase, and oftentimes don't even understand that the contract that they signed is assignable to somebody else. So just a simple phone call and talking through that helps a lot, I think. And we did that as best as we could. I would also not recommend changing management agreements for at least 12 months. Just don't touch them. Service them like they were before, but at your level of customer service. So take it up a notch. That's my tips. I don't know, what would you say?
Yeah, those are probably the big two nuggets. I think the same goes for the tenants as well, because you want to keep them happy and keep them in place. And I think not touching their leases until it's renewal time is a positive thing. We tried to convert everything over to our systems right out the gate, just so that our lives would have some simplicity and structure. But I think just keeping it stagnant for that first year, or whatever the term is probably the biggest nugget there.
Yeah, she mentions the tenant there. I think we have a 0-day grace period in our management, and that previous company had a 5-day. So we immediately switched that, and the ones in a month, they lost their grace period. So I would just take a deep breath and just roll with it for a little while before you start touching contracts. That was big for us. That was a big learning experience.
So gotcha. So the advice would be, hey, bring in a portfolio, have an adequate clawback clause to make sure that you can regain revenue for lost accounts that will pop out within 12 months. That's what clawback is for those who are listening and don't know. And another thing, during the integration process, as much as possible, don't shake it. Don't shake the tree too much. Let it sort of like grow and integrate and apply your customer service, and so people see the advantage. Personal phone call to the owner goes a long way to let them know it's happening, but then start sort of changing this gradually.
Yes.
Rather than just like a Band-Aid. And I get it, but integrate it into your systems to make the efficiency, make the processes easier on yourselves. Is that a good recap?
Great recap. Yep.
Sums it up. Yeah.
More or less. All right. Perfect. Excellent. So with that, my personal question that I'm interested in personally, I do work with my wife as well, but she does not report anywhere near me. She's in marketing. I run the company. how do you guys manage to stay sane during work and after work?
Yeah, I don't, a lot of people ask us that, and we just have a really good marriage. Just a really good marriage. We understand each other. Sometimes we don't turn off the office. I'll be honest. Sometimes we're talking about business at 8 o'clock at night, or when we're about to go to sleep or something. But we work well together. I think she respects my role in the company. I respect her role. We don't overstep each other. So, say for instance, one of her employees comes to me with a problem. I let Kristin handle the problem, and she does the same for me. Those things help us not overstep each other's boundaries. So
we do a lot of our best business planning and brainstorming in the evenings, sitting in the hot tub.
Yeah.
So it's great that I think a lot of people in property management who have a spouse or significant other outside of property management, sometimes it's hard for that outside spouse or significant other to relate to what we go through every day. So being on the inside of it together, I think it's great because we're able to support each other through it. And maybe I'm having a really rough day and he can talk me off the ledge and vice versa. So we know there's brighter days ahead. So, and really at the end of the day, Alex, our offices are 2 doors down from each other, but we don't ever see each other during the day. We go to lunch together and then we pick up kids at the end of the day together. But throughout the day, he's doing his part and I'm doing mine. So
I think from what I hear, it's just, first of all, it starts with a healthy relationship, and then the respect for each other's roles. But then I guess you have to really identify the roles and make sure it's because some of us, more, let's call them male founders, right, will have this sort of dominance factor where we have to control everything. I've beaten myself off of it as much as I can. I still have the tendency to go in and tell people what to do, where they're better than me in their jobs by far. But so I think that if you can take the ego out of the equation and really respect each other, that's the path, right?
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
right. Yep.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's go back to the founding story and talk through how did you end up in property management. This is not something people choose to end up in. They are now, however, like you will see. I'll share some stats with you. So, like, this, we tracked searches on Google, and you can see the quantity of searches. So starting a property management company went from something like 200 searches every quarter or so to about 1,000 a month. Well, 600 a month or so. It's just crazy.
Wow.
And it's just all of a sudden it's a path. It's a true career. People are interested in it. How did you end up in the business?
We chose. We were those weirdos that chose.
We're the suckers. Yeah.
well, tell me about that. How did you look at the franchise? Like, what was the choosing process?
Yeah, so I actually worked in real estate for a really long time as a real estate paralegal, and I worked for a large investment company that we had properties all around the country in San Diego, and I oversaw a lot of property managers, and I always thought, oh my gosh, these poor souls. And when at the time Shawn was flying helicopters and his dream helicopter position opened up back home, this is home for him in Farmington, and he said, oh, we're gonna move back to New Mexico. And I thought, oh gosh. And our sister-in-law at the time was a real estate appraiser, and she said, oh, there's a huge need here for a good property management company. There just isn't a good one. And so we started doing research on it and thought, yeah, it actually seems like there is a pretty good need. And at the time we thought, oh, if we can get to about 150 properties, life will be good. Shawn's flying a helicopter. I can easily manage 150 doors by myself. And
then we went to NARPM.
And then we joined NARPM, yeah. And we blew up to over 150 doors in our first 2 years in business. And then doubled in size the next year. So to say that there was a need here would be an understatement. That's kind of how we got going, and it was with the intent of being small and, running it out of the house to being fairly good size and operating in 2 states. So
in 2 states. Oh, interesting. So you are multi-location now?
Yep, we just opened up a second office last fall in Flagstaff, Arizona. So
Flagstaff. Okay.
yeah.
That's very cool. And Shawn, do you still fly?
I am still on the roster for flying for our local sheriff's department, but I haven't flown in a year. So
How do you feel about that?
bums me out because I absolutely love it. I would like to get to a point where I can afford a helicopter and just go buy one and tootle around.
So
Okay.
property inspections on steroids, right?
There you go.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
that's definitely a business expense. And we've got 2 offices. We need to fly to Arizona.
There's a point of difference for you.
As a listener of this show, I already know you care about growing your business. You care about success. And what I'm going to tell you over the next 2 minutes may change and transform your property management business forever if you take action. I'm going to tell you a story of 2 customers who decided to upgrade their websites to a 4.5 website. The first story is about Andy Moore. He is in charge of a company called Gulf Coast Property Management. ChooseGulfCoast.com. He went with 4.5 website. We launched 8 months ago. Over the last 6 months, 2 quarters, his owner leads went up by 189%, which results in over $270,000 additional lifetime revenue Andy will receive from the customers gained the new website that he wouldn't have with his old website. The second story is about Jock McNeil with Alliance Property Management, AlliancePM.com. Jock saw a 185% increase in his qualified owner leads over the last 6 months. In his case, it's over $300,000 in a lifetime revenue add as opposed to his old website. These are huge numbers. And if you want to play in the top echelon of the property management entrepreneurs today, you need a website and a partner that can get you there.
To learn more about our property management websites, visit 4.5.com/grow. While you're there, be sure to request your free website analysis. When you're ready to purchase, you will receive a special podcast discount of $400 off your website. Now back to the show.
So now I'm going to unpack this a little bit. We're going to go back to the founding story. I want to know challenges within the first 100 units because there's a subset of our listeners who are right there and they can't wait. I'm going to ask you to just hold on a little bit, and I want to unpack this second office because that to me is people are doing it that now, and I want to know why. So tell me why, thought behind it, why.
So the reason that we picked Flagstaff, my sister actually lives in Flagstaff, and she's been telling us for years her horror stories of renting in Flagstaff. And as far as being able to have somebody actually show up at a property to show her a house, or just from the tenant's perspective, what a nightmare it was for her. And so we kind of decided, we're going to go ahead and bite the bullet. It's, we can have her as our boots on the ground. She got licensed last summer. She'll be our boots on the ground. We can run all the operations out of our Flagstaff office, so we can grow through economies of
Out of
scale.
our Farmington
Or I'm
office.
sorry, we can run everything out of our Farmington office.
Understood. Yep.
So complete economies of scale. We've got virtual assistants that support, and then all of the accounting and phone answering and all of that stuff happens here. So really, she's our it in Flagstaff, and I'm also licensed in Flag, so I'm her broker and provide the backup when she needs it. So the plan is to expand into 2 additional markets with the same philosophy or growth plan behind it. So hopefully,
You have a couple more sisters out there?
No,
She does have 2 more sisters, but not ones that would work for her.
Yeah.
I was just say that I think the opportunistic nature of this particular expansion is the who, not the what. Hey, you had somebody there you trust completely, and was a way for you to seed that office. But do you feel Farmington opportunity is just you see the growth slow down because just the population size or competition? How do you feel about the home office opportunity?
Yeah, so I think that's the what behind it. And before we even thought about Flagstaff was we felt like Farmington, if you know Farmington, it's a very oil and gas and coal, so fossil fuel driven market. And it has not seen a strengthening like the rest of the nation has. In 2016 was actually one of our worst markets that we've had in years, decades, probably. And it's because of oil and gas, and most of our oil here is actually natural gas driven. So we get natural gas as the main product and oil as a byproduct, as versus like Texas and in Pennsylvania, they get oil and then they get natural gas as the byproduct. So that being said, we've lost a lot of jobs here. Actually, Farmington was ranked a higher shrinking town in the U.S. So we decided that Farmington was probably at that point where we need to look other places.
For diversification.
Yeah, diversification. We didn't want to just sink everything we had into Farmington, and if Farmington didn't continue to produce, then we're out of business, So we'll let everything happen.
And as an investor, do you so given that macroeconomic climate in Farmington specifically, do you see a kind of a customer profile changing, or do you still see investors? Do you see people who just the professionals need to work elsewhere and kind of accidental landlords? What do you see now?
Yeah, majority of our clients are accidental landlords. We do have several intentional investors, but they are certainly not the majority.
And so you don't see a lot of investments coming to Farmington until something changes on the city economy.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, now if you're looking for investments, it's actually a decent place to invest now because the home purchase price has gone down so far. So, and I personally think it seems like we trend about 2 years behind the nation here, and I think we're about to be on the uptick again of prices. So it's a good time now to buy.
What about rents? How are the rents in Farmington?
Yeah, so rents are higher than the rest of the state, really, besides Santa Fe and New Mexico, and but we have seen about a 10 to 12% decrease in rent prices. So,
oh wow, that's very uncommon. Like nowhere in the nation I've heard that statistic. So I can see I can see where you would consider diversification just so. And so what about Flagstaff? What do you see there? Who's the kind of client do you see there?
You do have your typical investors there.
A lot of investors.
Yeah, but it's the opposite. So really high, almost to the extreme, home prices there, but really high rents. So you could pick a 3-bed, 2-bath house and be at the $2,500 a month range.
What's the cost?
For a 3-bed, 2-bath house, you're in about $360,000 to $400,000 range. So
all right.
You're not at the 1% rule, which that's where I like to invest. I like that 1% to 1.5%. You could get some 2% every once in a while, but Flagstaff's not there. So,
gotcha. All right, and so let's go back and please the folks who are in the 100-unit range and want to learn how to do it right. Talk me through that initial learning curve. How'd you identify technology? How'd you identify service partners? Like, what was some of the big fails, some of the wins?
So my biggest piece of advice would be if you don't have a management software to get one immediately. We started before we even got our first unit with management software. I just don't know how people do it without. And I've seen a lot of people doing it without, and it kind of shocks me. So that would be a big first one. And I think trying to figure out your systems early on, because the bigger you grow it, the harder it is to implement those systems. So if you can work on those during the downtimes while you're trying to build the business and trying to get the phone to ring, believe it or not, that's probably the most time you'll have on your hands for a long time. So taking advantage of some of that downtime to write those systems and get them hard and fast, and something that you can modify obviously as you continue to grow, but just so that you have a baseline.
How would you know, Kristin, how would you know the systems you need to deploy if you don't know, if you don't know the gist of the business yet?
So I think, walking through the process in your head as far as from very beginning to end. So thinking about what it looks like to onboard a new client and what you want to be able to present to that client and what it looks like to onboard them, what it takes to market a property and secure a new tenant, what your lease is going to look like, how often you're going to do inspections at the property. Are you going to do a move in and move out inspection? How are you going to do that? I think thinking through the entire process of, really from the time you onboard a property or that first listing appointment to the time that that property terminates, and thinking about the entire process and every step in between is a good place to start. And obviously it's going to be something that you change and tweak as you actually start operating the business, but at least you're going to have some kind of a good baseline of what you want your company to look like.
Really, really good. So consider the whole life cycle of your customer and then pick it into specific sub processes and then go and build out each process. That's good. NARPM would be a big help, National Association of Residential Property Managers. You mentioned you joined them and you kind of saw the light, and that's always something I stand behind, and it's going to open those of you who are starting and in that 100-unit range, not part of NARPM. This is a huge opportunity. You're gonna make so many more mistakes than you need to.
Oh yeah. And NARPM, we can honestly, Shawn and I can sit here today and tell you that NARPM, because of NARPM and the people that we've met through NARPM and the vendors that we've met through NARPM, has been the single reason that we've grown the way that we have and that we've been successful like we have. And NARPM has a really good vetting process for who they let in the door to be an affiliate. So great vendors at your disposal and things that you would never even think of, like, your service 4.5 and petscreening.com and just the things that you would never know about just starting out. So it's a huge resource. The education is great. The people that you meet, I've never met a more outgoing and willing to share group of people in my entire life. So
yeah, I think that was a strong endorsement. So yeah, those of you listening, if you're not walking your cat, just go to NARPM.org and join up and participate. All right, so first 100 units, systems work. You'll never have a better time because it's you are a little slow. The phone is not ringing off the hook, and you can map things out. Do it right. Get software before you actually need software, because by the time you need it, it's not too late, but then you are going to be marred into implementation process that's going to suck the life out of you. I know that. What software did you choose, by the way?
Appfolio. We still have Appfolio today. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. And so the first 100 properties, tell me what's some of the mistakes you made specifically.
Oh man, probably the first 100 was we were blowing and going, and we had this no fear attitude about it, and it was probably taking on things we shouldn't have. We got very selective in time, but it took us some wisdom and some cleansing to understand that just because it has a door and a roof doesn't mean it needs to be managed by you. And not all business is good business. So vetting the owner and vetting the house itself is something we had to learn the hard way.
Give us the example of how to do it wrong and how to do it right.
Yeah, so what we have now is called our property benchmarking, and it fits a bullet point of about 12 things. And if it doesn't fit that, we don't want it. But things like traveling for 45 minutes to get to a house, it's just not economical. Or taking on houses that just have a lot of maintenance and the owner's having a hard time paying the mortgage. It's not going to end up good for you or the tenant at that point. So those are some kind of, we've had all those houses that we shouldn't have taken on. And you end up just having an upset client, having an upset tenant, and you're wondering like, wow, we lost money at that gig. That's terrible.
Or when you look at a property and you're like, you tell the owner this house will bring $1,000 a month in rent, but no, I've got to get $1,500 because I have to cover fees and the mortgage and all of these other things, and being adamant about getting $1,500, and you're like, why would I waste my time? Because it's going to sit on the market for a year, and you're going to hate me, and I'm going to waste money and time trying to get your house rented, and it's better just to say, no, not a good fit. This is what we recommend. If you can come back to reality, we'd be happy to talk to you. But I think just setting those expectations up front on what you're looking for. And like Shawn said, knowing that not all business is good business.
So a thorough discovery process with an owner, interview them as much as they interview you, show that you care. This actually helps, really, really helps. The more you listen, the more, the better connection you'll build, but also the more you'll learn. And so your advice is be more selective, because you were cowboying this up. And when did you realize that was how? So this is interesting to me. This is very typical for the first 100 properties, because you got to get revenue somehow. Like you'll take anything that produces revenue, right? That has a pulse and produces revenue. And so how do you realize maybe that's the wrong one? Is it because you get a lot of calls? How do you find out?
I actually have a moment. I have a moment where I hit it. So I don't know if Kristin does. We started managing this sixplex. And it was actually a sixplex that was more of a student style living or a flat, and where you would rent a room, and it basically had a pot warmer, a microwave, a bed, a TV, and the bathroom and shower was at the end of the hall. Okay, and that's kind of how that was. That was the moment in which I realized, you know what, this is dumb to be managing, especially for $350 a month in rent for each of these units, and the headaches that came with that. Oh, so-and-so left the air conditioner on, and now just stupid stuff like that. You just don't want to do it. That was the moment I was like, you know what? No more of this. We're going to clearly define how we want to manage properties and what properties we want to manage. And
I think you can look at a property or a client as you've managed them, and you can figure out pretty quickly. I spend 80% of my time on these 20% of clients. And you can do an analysis on what it costs you, and this is my accounting coming out, right? So you can do an analysis on what it costs you to manage a property versus what that property brings in for you. And we got to the point where it was like, man, we're paying these people to manage their property for them, and it's causing the biggest headaches for us and our staff. We're losing sleep at night because of these people, and we're paying them to manage their property.
Yeah.
So
we took it to the next level too, because we had a meeting with a business coach. Todd Breen coached us for a few sessions. And he's like, I bet you if you started looking at your portfolio, the bottom third of your portfolio, you're spending 80% of your time. And that bottom third is making you no money. It's actually costing you money to manage them. Those conversations really changed our mindset in this business. So
that's kind of how we went from being at 620-ish properties back down. We actually dropped down to about 450 over the last 2 years, but our revenue increased 12%.
Ooh, well, I was actually going to ask you about that. I have in my notes, I promise you right here, to ask you about that drop. I didn't know if it was a big investor pulling out. And so that's interesting that we just kind of segued into this. And so this is intentional on your side?
100%. Yeah.
Because Todd Breen told you to do so, the old wolf?
Well, Todd Breen, then he referred us to Darren Hunter, where Darren Hunter clients were for 2 years.
Yep,
and,
sure.
It was time to, cut the fat. Just trim the fat and get rid of the junk and get lean and mean and make it happen.
And how did you do it? What was the process? Nobody likes to get fired. You get bad reviews for that, right? So what did you do?
So actually it kind of started going through our fee max process. So as we were changing our fee structure and increasing things and actually charging for the services that we provide and do that our competitors don't, we kind of thought, oh, these clients will stick with us forever, and these ones we don't want anyway. And so they'll just go away through natural attrition, which is great. And it kind of shocked us because some of those people that we thought were going to die and go away wouldn't. And over time, as we made a conscious decision that, okay, this group of properties right here takes us, these 14 properties are going to take us 5 to replace on a new fee structure. So when we got those 5, we would fire the 14.
How do you fire them?
We just sent them a letter and basically said, we've appreciated working with you over the last X amount of years and your loyalty to us. However, we've gone a different way and our systems no longer support the management of your
So you're
property.
honest.
Yeah, so almost like it's not you, it's us.
And then, so did you actually get some bad reviews because of that, or what kind of feedback, or people just left?
We didn't. No, we had several owners beg us to stay, and others completely understood. And some of them had been with us for 3-4 years, so long-standing clients. But they understood that the way that we were taking our business and our vision for our future just wasn't aligned with the way that they wanted their properties run. And so for the most part, it was very, very pleasant. And we got good reviews from some of them, and others just left quietly. So
I've heard from Andrew Dugill the way to go about sort of firing client, I should, for reason that they're too expensive for you, is send them a fee increase letter. Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, so that was part of it. We actually did fee increases, but there was some that, you believe it or not, they stuck around no matter how much you raised their fees.
yeah.
So, and we implemented a minimum management fee. So if it doesn't pull in a certain amount, then it doesn't fit, and you would go above and beyond that, and they'd still stick around. So there was some, looking back at, we probably could have done a better job of trying to sell off those contracts. But locally, there's nobody that's really ambitious to do that. They didn't want to buy them, and we asked around, and just nobody was interested. So it had to be that decision. Let's actually terminate and move on.
Very interesting. Yeah, next time you're gonna get rid of a couple contracts, give me a call. I'll find somebody. I'll find somebody that will buy it off your hands. Seriously, it's just been so hot lately. It's crazy.
It is.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. And so I want to we have we have about 10 minutes left. You guys okay on time?
Sure. Yeah.
10 more minutes. So yeah, I want to dig in a little bit about pricing. It's such a mysterious thing. Like everybody, nobody really knows what to do here and how to price things. And I know you've been coached by Darren and Todd. By the way, love Todd. No, we fished together, and he's a great guy. I called him Old Wolf because he's been in the business for like 40 years, and he's 50 or something.
Yeah.
Or 55 or something like that. Anyway, do you post your pricing on the website?
We do in our Flagstaff market. It's really easy. So we went through a 3-tiered structure plus a lease only. And it's really easy to post that. In our Farmington market, we don't, and it's only because there's a lot of ancillary service fees that it's just hard to list them all. I guess we haven't found a creative way to actually put them out there.
So we're actually running 2 different pricing structures in our 2 offices. And we kind of wanted to test the Flagstaff market out on a flat fee structure, so because it is clean and we can post it online, where our Farmington office is a little bit complicated. So
you don't have a 3-tier in your Farmington office?
No.
We don't, not today.
I want to talk to you. I want to ask you why. I know you said ancillary fees. I hate that term. I call them value-add services.
Yeah, that's
you want to have to call them a fee. It's a value-add service fee.
Sure.
Yeah.
I like it.
Changes the meaning, in my opinion.
Sure.
And so, is that because, or you just, it's been successful, you don't want to touch it? Like, what are your thoughts here?
It has been successful. It's a mindset to not touch it. We also don't want to, if we did a 3-tier, we average about 200 and I think it's 213 a door is our monthly revenue per door.
Very good.
Yeah, and we actually have, our average rent's only $1,038. So for 213, that's pretty good. So we're scared to make that go down is where our fear is for Farmington. It's easy to make it go up in Flagstaff. It's new, and the rents are really high there. So that's kind of why we haven't touched it here. I'd like to touch it because I really want my pricing on our website. Just haven't been able to wrap our head around how to do that effectively. So
how about this? Just an idea. What if you throw in 3 programs, just like you have been doing, itemize all the value-add services, put a price on them, and have your lowest tier covering the least expensive tier with all the fees outlined. The middle tier includes some of it, and you have a top tier that includes all of it. That actually kind of connects to your per door revenue goal. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, and that's actually kind of what we did in Flagstaff. It's very much set up that way. And we actually just started working with Jordan and Profit Coach. So our thought and our game plan kind of with Farmington is to really solidify those numbers with Jordan and kind of figure out what those pricing structures should be for our Farmington office.
Yeah, we understand the service side of it, the value add service listing it. But as far as the price of it, we haven't nailed that down yet. So it's close.
Gotcha. So you want to understand the margins of each service thoroughly before you go and start experimenting.
Right.
Very wise. I got you. I'll allow it. I'm just kidding.
Thank you, Alex.
Marketing perspective, that makes sense, right?
Sure.
That makes sense. But the 3-tier pricing, obviously, that it shows transparency and it really is a good way to earn a customer. And when somebody's asking you, what is your fee? On the phone, it's like, oh no, not again. They don't know what to ask, so they say, "What's your fee?" Right?
Not their fault. Yeah.
And then if you're able to say, "Well, Mr. Johnson, our fees range between 6 and 10%. Really, all depends what you need, and if we are going to be able to solve this problem for you." So let me ask you a few questions about your property and find if we're a fit. That kind of conversation, like just boom, and it's like I answered your question.
Yeah.
And I'm not too expensive, and I can't be as cheap as you want me to be, as anybody else. Now let's focus on the problem.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that really does give you freedom for that.
You need a BDM job, Alex.
I actually do. I train BDMs in my spare time, I should say. I really, really enjoy that because there's so much opportunity in this industry. I think we just don't understand. I consider myself almost a property management because that's who I talk to. That's my tribe. But I think the understanding of the purpose you serve as in society is way underestimated, and people don't think about that.
Yep.
Right? You find homes for families to live in, for kids to grow up, and you take care of people's largest assets that will define their financial well-being.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very important job.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So anyway, and on that note, I think this is good. This was an excellent interview. Any parting words of wisdom for folks who are in the, let's call it 400, 500 range? What is your next move? What are the next moves you're making?
I would say start cleansing your portfolio and focus on your top tier properties and owners.
It's very liberating.
It is. It's an amazing feeling, and you will not believe the stress that lifts out of your life. And then charge what you're worth. If you're performing a service, you deserve to be paid for it, and don't let anybody tell you that you shouldn't be paid for it. So nothing in this life is free, and you shouldn't work for free either. So
those are good ones. By the way, did you guys buy your PM Grow tickets yet?
Yes, we have.
Awesome.
We'll be there.
Thank you very much. And so last, before we depart, PM Grow Summit is the conference that really puts a lot of these top thinkers like Kristin and Shawn here together in a room with about 250 more. We keep it at that sort of family, smallish kind of feel. It's not a wholesale conference. It's really only for the folks who are at the level and focused on growth. And this is one quote I'm going to finish with, which I read today, and I absolutely fell in love with. People keep talking about, and by the way, maybe I need to ask, if you have about 2 minutes, let me ask you this. What do you think, what is the purpose of growth? Why business growth is important to you and overall?
Yeah, well, first of all, it builds morale. When you're stagnant in a business, it absolutely devastates morale. And, you get burnout from that. You could get burnout from growing too, but you certainly it takes the winds out of your sails. So that's my thought. Growth is a healthy way to stay busy, and you need repeat clients. You need clients to give you other clients to help stay healthy and to continue a good business. So that's my thoughts.
I think we were put on this earth to learn and grow constantly, and by being a business owner who is able to drive that kind of growth, you're providing wealth and jobs for other people, and you're contributing to the greater good. So
I love that. Wow, that's really, really good. Both of you are just combined for this awesome. This is the quote I read. This is actually encapsulates what you just said, Kristin. Significant value creation cannot occur without growth. So the failure to scale has social as well as investor and managerial costs. It affects job creation and innovation throughout society.
Oh man,
Like that's from Harvard Business Review. That's it, man. I'm gonna be I'll sort of learn that over time, and I'll be using that as my own. But you
that's genius. So who quoted that? Who was that?
This gentleman who wrote the article for Harvard Business Review. I will have to email you the name, and those of you who are listening will link up the article in the notes. It's really deep, kind of stages of growth in the company. I don't know how helpful this would be. It was a little deep for me. I'll be honest with you, but there's some really good stuff I fished out of there.
I love it.
Awesome.
It's good stuff.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
I'm going to throw a plug. Don't miss the conference. It was amazing the last 2 years.
I appreciate it, Shawn. PMGrowthSummit.com. Go there, get your tickets. Don't be stingy. That's the investment. It'll pay dividends for a long time.
Yes, it will.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you very much for your time. You have a great evening, and thank you for listening.
Yeah, man.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Alex.